Welcome to the Wealth Guide podcast. I'm your host, Gianni Musamechi, and today we have a special episode featuring Ray Regmi, a seasoned financial advisor with over 15 years experience and founder of Ryker Capital. Ray is known for his dedication to providing top-notch financial advice and treating clients like family. Joining us on the podcast as well is his client, Nick, who has benefited from Ray's expertise. We'll hear firsthand from Nick about his experience and how Ray's tailored strategies have made a difference in his financial life. Stay tuned for another insightful conversation on achieving financial well-being and the importance of personalized financial planning. Let's get started. Hi everybody, I'm your host Gianni Musamechi and welcome to another episode of the Wealth Guide podcast. I'm lucky enough to have executive financial advisor and founder of Ryker Capital, Ray Regmi, with me, and his client, Nick Chong. Gents, thanks for joining us.
Gianni, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Very good. Nick, I was hoping you could sort of kick us off. Maybe prior to seeing Ray, what did you sort of understand of your finances and really what were your goals, if any?
You know, it's funny you should say that because just like everybody else, you know, we kind of get bogged down with just work, life in general. And a lot of the times you just don't think about your finances or your investments, your super, the things that's actually more important to you in the future. And it's not until someone actually kind of sit down with you and go, hey, have you actually considered X, Y, Z? You know, and what is your goals? And I think one of the things that Ray really kind of helped me understand is the why, you know, which then kind of sets the tone of what needs to be done. And in part, that's where, you know, I started to kind of figure out, okay, what is my short-term goal? What are my long-term goals? What do I want out of this? And it's a really good discovery process that I had. And now it gives me some clarity of what I should really be doing with my super, do I need insurance, pretty much the whole gambit of what it requires to have more of a holistic view with my finances. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's awesome, mate. And I think if anything, like often in financial advice, we call it a discovery session. So maybe, Ray, what is that sort of initial session like when you discover your clients' goals and help them articulate what their goals are?
Thank you, Gianni. Look, obviously, when I sort of started the process with a client, I think we really started at a foundation level just to understand what does the cash flow look like? What does the income look like? What does the expenses look like? What are the tax they're paying? So when you look at the whole picture around the finances of money coming in, money going out, it really has to start at the budget level. And once you sort of get the budget level, then you try to get the goals and aspirations of a client, especially Nick in this instance, we had to work out what are the key priorities are and how do we address them? And then we went through stage by stage, naming the priorities and then sort of eliminating what can be achieved over the short term, what can be achieved over the long term. And that way we sort of design a strategy around it. Now, also other part becomes is holding Nick accountable. And that was hard part, wasn't it, Nick?
You know, I thought that's exactly what I was going to say, but obviously he kind of teased it out a bit better than I did. But yeah, you're right. I think what you did really, really well is kind of give me some sort of a framework, something to kind of work towards, you know, and the annual check-ins, perfect.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't get a kick in the bum every now and then to go, hey, mate, what are you doing? Where is everything up to? You tend to kind of go astray. And to have that by your side, I think it's very powerful in the long term. You know, so that's what I really appreciate about the whole Ryker Capital service model.
And I think, if anything, if we sort of compare your financial situation to a health check, if anything, if a doctor gives you medication, like unless there's somebody saying, have you taken your meds today? Like you're not going to take it, you're going to forget them.
That's a different story altogether about meds.
So essentially, I think what ended up happening was going through the whole budget piece with Nick. And I think that was the interesting piece.
Oh, that's very interesting.
When you sort of go through the transaction and go, well, Nick, there are some ancillary expenses here. I think we need to sort of have a look at this. What are you spending some of your money on? And obviously, you know, you don't sometimes think about what these expenses are until you go, oh my God, I've spent X amount of dollars in going out or X amount of expenses buying coffees. And then when you add up the total and you go, look, you earn very good salary, but your ancillary expenses are quite large. So I think you need to sort of take a little bit of accountability of what can you let go to save on it.
Can I just quickly add to that? So to cut you off, because you know, it's
no
really,
personal details.
it is a very interesting topic because for me personally, look, I work in finance, right? I kind of look at budgets and stuff like that too. Yeah. But a lot of people just don't seem to realize how much they actually spend until someone goes, hey man, let me just have a look at everything that you spend. Look, this is the reason why your propensity to save is a lot lower than it should be. These are the consequences and whatnot. But because we don't have this sort of capability or the knowledge to actually see that, and then when Ray comes in and say, hey, look, this is where you are. this is where you could be, but you need to make some slight adjustments, some sacrifices, cut down on the avocados and toast, cut down on the coffees. And it plays a world of difference long-term wise. And what's really powerful is that if you kind of extrapolate those figures, the vision and what it could be, like it does gives you that extra motivation to go, hey, look, you know what? Whip me into shape. I whip my finance into shape. I really need that.
Yeah. And it's a bit like the before and after, if you like, if you have a personal trainer, before what you look like and after what you look like, with basically a financial planner. So essentially it just gives you a bit of a roadmap to go, if we keep doing this, this is what you're going to achieve. And then obviously we do a yearly accountability check to go, what have you done? How does it look like now? Are we close to that goal that we marked by the end of June? We are there, great. And if there was any variations, what happened? Let's address them and let's make sure that doesn't happen again the next year.
Yeah, 100%. And often I sort of think that clients, when they first or before they see an advisor, they have too much personal bias. They're almost nearsighted when it comes to their own finances. Like they're so close to their own finances, they can't see what's going on. And it takes that, to use that term again, the discovery session to say, hey, this is actually what's happening and this is where the gaps are. And once we sort of go through that, or once you rather go through that conversation, if anything, and highlight where those gaps are, and I'm sure, how was the sort of conversation then to say, oh, wow, these are the gaps. What are we going to do about it? Like, how did that conversation go, sorry, Nick?
Well, I use a very good example. I think one time we sat down and kind of looked through my statements. It's like, there's Netflix, there's Spotify, there is Disney Channel, there's Amazon. And he goes, do you really need that many platforms, honestly? And I was looking at that going, you know what, you're right. Like everything costs like $10 a month, $20 a month. At a personal level, you kind of think, oh, what is $20 a month? Like, I just want to have that freedom to be able to kind of flick to channels. But the reality is that I don't really watch all those channels. As a matter of fact, I probably kind of stick to Netflix as an example. So all these other expenses that's always been good to have, I could have saved it and used that to contribute into my super instead of paying somebody else, and you don't actually think about this sort of stuff until someone actually sits down and goes, do you really use these services that you've, subscribed to? And then once you kind of have an understanding going, actually, no, I don't, right? What could that extra $20 would look like for my future? Now, albeit everyone thinks that, it's only 20. What, is it really a life-changing amount? It's not, but if you do all these little increments and you kind of, again, tease out or have more of a longer time horizon, it does play a big difference in the end because of the compounding interest that Ray explained to me. Good.
And the key thing was obviously, look, adding the superannuation part, and I think most people sort of go, look, I'm quite young. I don't want to necessarily add to my super. But when you sort of demonstrate on a calculator to go, what does that look like compounded over time? But not only that, I think in Nick's case specifically, as long as you don't mind me talking about it, we essentially made these last minute contributions just to get some, not only boosting the retirement savings, but getting a tax deduction out of it. So here we are putting in $5,000 or $10,000, depending on what cash flow was available. At the end of July, when Nick would do tax returns, he would get a large lump sum back out of the tax return, which he never had. So all of a sudden, it's like, what do I do with this?
It's a good problem to have.
Definitely. I think from my perspective as a client, like the way I see financial planners is that they're a finance coach, really. They draw up the plan, they draw up the strategy, and they also help you execute. Now, in part, me, clients, same analogy as a player, I need to do my part too. But at the same token, the coach, or in this case, Ray, is the one that actually holds me accountable, right? If I stray too far off from the plan, that's when he'll go, hey, look, what are you doing? That's fine. Let's just come back in. And I think that's where the value is, to have that regular conversation with your financial planner. And I find it when I speak to other people as well about financial planning, a lot of times it's a set and forget. And that's the general sort of feel that I get when I try to get a gauge of what does financial planner do, right, in the early stages. And that's usually the case. It's almost like, well, they don't really talk to them. And I feel like that's where the missing bit is between, or a disconnect between the value between planner and client. Now, if you're able to kind of find someone that be able to kind of link everything together, have the conversation and the whole accountability piece that Ray's talking about, like it makes a world of difference. Make a world. That's how I saw it. Again, like as a coach, we're our players. You just got to tell us what we need to do, and we just have to help execute it and work together to kind of win the championship, right?
I laugh. It's funny because I actually used that analogy recently. Like, yes, financial planners are often the coaches. And if anything, they surround a team around their clients. They call in the finance specialist, the accountant, the lawyer if necessary. But they essentially create a team around their client, of a team of professionals, if anything, to help them reach their goals and manage their finances, if anything. Do you often find that you you call in the specialist to help out your clients? And because essentially as a financial planner, you're providing a holistic view. So you know when to call in those professionals.
You absolutely do, Gianni. I think when you look at a client's situation and as you sort of work further into the structure, you look at going, well, okay, do I need to involve a bit of a tax strategy over here? And if that tax strategy needs to be involved, yes, I can design and create some part of the strategy, but I do need to involve an accountant here because I don't want to be crossing over the line where I'm sort of providing exactly tax advice. Whilst we provide tax planning, you do need an accountant's help to execute it. Now, there would be estate planning issues. Now, if they wanted the money to go to a different form of dependence, what does that look like? What is the tax would look like on the estate planning side? So you would then speak to a lawyer to go, hey, I'm just about to implement this strategy. What does the outcome look like for a client? Should I structure this strategy out? So you are involving quite a different people in different stages of client's journey of financial planning. But the end outcome is you're trying to maximize the structure and meet their goals and objectives, what they're looking to do in 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So you do involve quite a bit of people in that part of the process.
And I think Nick actually put it best recently, like you have to have that regular interaction with your client. It's not just a set and forget approach. I think pilots often use an analogy. I think it's for every 1 degree you're out off target, you're about a mile away from your end goal for every minute that you fly in that direction. Wow. So you have to make those regular course corrections, see every year. Well, how does that sort of conversation go in terms of how you're tracking towards your goal with your clients?
So usually the conversation starts around what's changed in their financial situation or perhaps what has occurred in their lifestyle. So whether they've had a child, whether they've had a taken on a further debt, what does their tax strategy looks like? Has they started to earn more income? So you sort of pivot based upon those milestones, and based upon that, you'll change your tax and strategy around it. So if there is a client paying higher level of taxes, what are some of the tax strategies we can implement between using husband and wife to minimize the taxes and still grow their wealth? Or perhaps if they had a child, what does the insurance structure looks like? Do we need to incorporate kids as a beneficiary? Do we need to involve a lawyer now to do the wills and the power of attorney because the financial situation of the family has changed essentially? So you do sort of pivot on those rules based upon client situation or the journey as they sort of age.
Today's episode of the Wealth Guide podcast is proudly sponsored by Ryker Capital. In a world full of financial uncertainties, Ryker Capital understand the importance of safeguarding your lifestyle and the well-being of your loved ones. That's why we're committed to providing you with personally tailored insurance plans and financial advice that aligns with your unique needs and goals. Ryker Capital is your guide in the complex world of superannuation and retirement planning. Our team of experts are dedicated to helping you navigate these complexities with ease and confidence. We're here to empower you with the knowledge and strategies you need to build wealth and secure your future. At Ryker Capital, we offer a comprehensive range of services designed to optimize your superannuation. We work closely with you to determine the best contribution strategy, regularly review your superannuation fund, set achievable financial goals. Our coaching and consulting services ensure your financial plan stays on track with regular reviews to adjust to your changing circumstances and aspirations. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Take control today with Ryker Capital. Contact us for an obligation-free discussion about your financial plan by calling us on 1300 179 537. Let us help you secure your finances because you deserve it. Ryker Capital, your trusted partner in financial success. Nick, are there any realizations along the journey at all? Like when sort of Ray lays it out for you or has that discovery session or even acts as a sounding board of your own finances. Are there any realizations that you sort of have after that moment?
I definitely do. I tend to kind of overspend. You know, what's actually funny here is that, you know, I'm obviously in the finance space as well. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of times I feel like even professionals, just like psychologists, right? You know, they actually need to go to another psychologist to kind of vet through them. And I think it's the same thing as me where even though I understand finance and I've done the whole stint with planning and whatnot, but not until someone looks from the outside in. Yeah, because like you said, we were so close to our own finances, we just can't see anything.
Yeah.
And it's that sudden realization to go, hey, Nick, I know you're good at finance. I know you know what you're doing. But because you're so close to where you are, you have missed out X, Y, Z. You know, and then that's when the penny dropped going, you know what? I don't need that Amazon. I don't need that avocado. I don't need to have 3 coffees a day.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But, you know, again, it's this sort of stuff that even though I'm in the industry, you don't realize it until someone comes and go through, give you a good health check and say, hey, this is what you're missing.
Even personal trainers need personal trainers.
Exactly right. You know, so, you know, and that's what I really appreciate. And going back to what I was saying before, even though I've got the experience and I'm vetting through planners, it's just, you know, for me, you need to find someone that you can engage with, that you can actually work well, because financial planning is for the long term. That's how I see it. And it's how we've always learned about financial planning. And you need to have the right specialists in place to kind of get you there, you know, and not just going, hey, you know what, decide to go with a plan because it's close to home. It doesn't work that way. You know, and I find that having a planner that cares, that really kind of sit by your side and go, hey, mate, constantly, you know, chipping away all those bad habits, which I have a lot.
I never cut out his avocado, by the way.
That's why my skin's so dry. But yeah, I mean, it's really, really powerful to kind of constantly have that good connection with your planner, with your accountant, with any of your specialists, because that way they'll be able to kind of constantly work out how they can optimize your position, you know. And if we go outside of the box, they'll bring us back in. And that's what I really appreciate, the relationship that we have.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits of financial advice. If anything, it's that transparency, not only of what you're doing, but the environment as a whole. So look, I understand you're in finance, but there's so many aspects of finance. We talked about a little bit about super, tax, legal aspects of finance as well. So I think if anything, providing that insight and education into your position as a whole amongst the financial landscape, if anything, is immeasurable. I wanted to ask, like we talked a little bit about the measurable benefits of financial advice, but what are the sort of immeasurable benefits? Sort of, I'm thinking like, do you sleep at night better? Are your emotions a little bit better? Like, I know it's a little bit corny to say, but
it's well, firstly, sleep has been always a challenge because I have a little one now, and plus, you know, when you run your business, you're just constantly thinking. However, it does alleviate and remove some of my distractions that I ordinarily would have I actually not going, hey, look, if I've got any issues, I'm just, you know, raise just a phone call away. And I think that level of comfort plays a big difference in my overall well-being. And it has to. You know, prior to that, imagine I just kind of be doing everything all at the same time. It can be very overwhelming. But if someone can alleviate one part of my life when it comes down to super, insurances, all that, it makes a world of difference. Yeah. So in answering your question, do I sleep well at night? No. But are my finances sorted and do I have comfort around that? Yes.
Yeah. I think if anything, that's part of the role of a financial advisor, is to support you as well and take that stress off your back, that load off your shoulders, and alleviate you, like, to use your term, to alleviate you that particular aspect of your lifestyle as well. What sort of strategies do you use to support your clients in terms of their financial well-being?
Look, I think there's a number of different strategies depending, again, on the life size of the clients are usually at. So the key strategies would be, again, going to the accountability piece. I find that very useful to go, let's use the charting of going where we were before with their finances, where we are now. So sort of providing that holistic view of where did we start at 12 months, where are we now? That provides us a key view. What are some of the legislative changes that have occurred and how those legislative changes are going to impact you, whether it be your tax, your super, your insurances, or any of the environmental changes that's going to occur, and then obviously what impact it will have over the long term. So you use different measures with different clients around, you know, what are the legislative impacts. I think that's a couple of the stuff that we look at. Yeah,
no, I hear you. And look, the more I talk, the more I listen, it sounds more and more like personal training, if anything, just for your finances.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's a forever changing world as far as the strategies goes. Yeah. The new strategy will come in. Some of the strategy will leave out because they're grandfathered, some of the rules. So those kind of strategies, you always sort of pivot and move as things change.
Yeah. And one thing I'm curious about, how does the conversation go around prioritization of goals as well? Because I feel sometimes as clients, we talk about, oh, you know, this goal number 2 is really important to me. But if I go for goal number 2, I can't get goals with number 1, 3, and 4. How's the sort of trade-off conversation go?
Look, it's all about honesty, Gianni, when you're having that conversation. We have had clients who've sort of said, I want to buy 5 properties in 5 years. Now, it's well and truly good to say that I want to buy 5 properties in 5 years. Yeah. What impact does it have on your cash flow? Where is the cash flow going to come from? Yeah. What are some of the changes you'll need to make in order to do that? So there's a lot of different behavioral aspect, financial aspect, and not only that, mentally you've got to sort of change and prepare for those sort of goals and objectives. And what do you put in place then more at a granular level, where there's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to achieve that 12-month goal? So those aspects, I think, play a big role in sort of working out those structures and strategies.
Yeah. And I think this comes back again to the discovery session, if anything, like having those open, honest conversation, educating the clients around, you know, what are you truly looking to achieve? Like all well and good. Yes, I want to buy 5 properties in 5 years. Nick's going to definitely finance those 5 properties for me. But what does that goal mean to you, if anything? Because everybody comes in, I'm sure, I want $1 million, I want financial freedoms.
Correct.
They're almost opposite ends of the spectrum, but how do you articulate those goals?
So see, this is sometimes the hard conversation to have, because if my priority 1 is not met, then you're not a good planner. You know, it's not that. It's the fact that we just don't have the means to achieve those goals, whether we park that goal for another 5 years or 10 years, and then we sort of slowly work towards it to achieve those goals. So again, to your question, we need to sort of prioritize those immediate goals and how do we achieve them. And once we've gone that, I think it's for clients, it's a self-achievement to go, I got that, I made it, right? And it's a bit of pat on the back and go, right, okay, look, let's have a look at the next 5-year goals and then how do we achieve those? So it becomes a sense of priority.
And how did that conversation go for you? How do you sort of feel after you had that conversation, Nick, around prioritizing or even articulating your goals?
The whole discovery, trying to understand priorities and whatnot. Sometimes it's a bit of a reality check. You know, I mean, to your point, someone comes to you and say, hey, look, I want to buy 5 properties in 5 years, mate. Like, honestly, do you actually have the means? Do you understand the risk, financial risk in particular? And you know, when you do a quick reality check and say, hey, look, it's not feasible for you to be able to, you know, based on the goals and objectives. Everybody wants to retire tomorrow, actually, yesterday, right? But unfortunately, people are going to have to work for the next like 10, 15 years. But if you have the right investment in place, then it would actually shorten the time it takes for you to retire. So a long about way for me actually answering the question is that it's once we start to kind of understand priorities, you know, then I start looking at my budget. Again, you know, the core principle, the nuts and bolts, it's all about budget, because once you understand your budget, then you know what extra cash that you'll be able to kind of invest or spend on or whatever it is. And that to me kind of give me some clarity. Okay, to go, okay, let's look at what the end game is. What are the steps we need to do to Ray's point? Break it down into little bite sizes, get a little bit more granular with it, and how do we actually execute it, right? And what is the time frame? So it feels like there's people out there, they don't understand the level of intricacy that, you know, planners put behind their work, you know, those little minor details. And if you add those little details together, it becomes a big picture at the end of the day, right? Just like solving put together like a puzzle as an example. You just place everything together and then you have this picture. So for me, you know, once we kind of go through that discovery, we understand our priorities. Yeah, sometimes you might think and say, wish I could have that, but could that be delayed by 3, 4, 5 or 10 years? Or how important is it for me to have that instant gratification now? If I can delay by 4 or 5 years, but, you know, the trajectory of my outcome is significantly different, which gives us a better outcome towards the end, then it makes sense for me to delay. So this is where honesty is the currency that both planners and the client should actually put an emphasis on. You know, because the more that we're actually kind of open, the more he's able to kind of formulate or put together something that actually makes sense to be able to get there. And again, do that sort of reality check as well to see is it feasible. And it just, again, removes all that sort of doubts. It's almost like once you have a plan in place, the cloud just starts kind of move away and you see that sun nice and shiny.
And to put to Nick's point, I think when you sort of start doing the numbers at a granular level, say, yes, you're going to want to buy X amount of properties. What is the rates? The agent's fees, right? There's the strata, every other expense that goes with it, insurances, capital works. What does that look like? This is the expense. This is the income out of it. Yes, we're going to get some tax advantage and we've got a long-term capital growth projection. What does that actually mean, right? But you're also about to have a baby you have a plan to have a baby in 5 years. Is that going to sort of, you know, how's that going to impact your financial position at that point in time? So you've got to start sort of really articulating each of those structures accordingly.
You know what though, Ray, I got to admit, you should have maybe told me how much it would cost to have a kid. I didn't see that coming. I honestly didn't see that. I was like, oh my goodness, the diapers.
I did tell you about the diapers.
It was never ending. It was literally never ending. It's like, man, where all my money go? Diapers. Oh, God.
What are you feeding Harper, by the way?
A lot of food. She eats better than I do.
They all do. Very good. Look, gents, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in. Nick, special thank you as well for sharing your story with with us rather. Look forward to seeing from you and hearing from you on the podcast again shortly.
Beautiful.
Thanks for your time,
Thank
gents.
you, Johnny.
Thanks.
If you enjoy the content we bring you on the Wealth Guide podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and share with your community. Let's grow this community together and make financial literacy accessible to all.